And we're live.
So Destiny,
Hi.
was it a coup attempt? Was it just a riot? Was it Trump's doing? Was it contrary to what Trump really wanted? What was your take on that?
So I think that it's really silly to get fixated on the words that we use because people will get like hyped up on falling into what these words mean. And then the whole conversation devolves into that. So like, for instance, if we were to say like, well, this was a coup, somebody might say like, well, it's a coup because they tried to stop like a democratic process of an elected leader and they wanted to install their own leader. But then somebody else might counter, well, was it really a coup? They didn't seem very organized. They didn't have top-down direction. They didn't have widespread enough support from the leader directly. Like, so like, I think that like getting into like, was it a coup and blah, 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 I think is like dumb because then people just argue all day long about like what the definitions are and what you need for something to be considered like a terrorist action or a coup, blah, blah, blah. But I think that if we were to speak like broadly, I think it looks like a coup to me. Yeah, there wasn't like direction from Trump, but you clearly have a lot of people that are so far removed from reality that they can't comprehend that maybe their candidate lost. And their goal is to subvert the democratic process by any means possible. First, it was misinformation from Trump. Then it was misinformation in the media. Then it was misinformation in the alternative media. Then it was misinformation from Giuliani. Then it was misinformation from in the lawsuits. And then it was misinformation of the Supreme Court. And then it was misinformation about how Pence could overturn the election. And like at every single, then it was misinformation about how senators could object at every single stage. And all the processes, as stupid as they were, and as much of a fucking waste of time they were, every single process was followed from start to finish. You know, they had their time in the media. They had their time on social media. They had their time in the courts. They had their time in front of the Supreme Court. They had their time in the Senate. You know, Trump called Pence a pussy. And at the end of the day, they lost at every stage of the way. And then it seems like at the end, it's like, well, fuck it. If reality isn't going to bend to what we want it to, then we're just going to break into the Capitol and force you guys to what we want, which kind of feels like a little bit of a coup to me. But
is that confirmed that he called Pence a pussy?
I mean, it's reported, and it seems to fall in line with everything else Trump has said. But
I hope he did.
I feel like you let Trump off the hook pretty easily, and like they didn't have support from the top. Like Michael Cohen testified, and he said Trump speaks in code, which makes it sound really complicated. But this code isn't hard to decode. He says things like, "You know what, Taylor? It sure would be nice if when you looked at General Flynn, you found him not guilty of anything and just just stopped it here." Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not pressuring you. I'm just saying it would be nice if it happened. Sure. That would really lighten my day up. That would make me smile. And you get the message, right? That's not a hard to decode code. When he says, look, you guys are going to lose your country if you don't march right down there to the Capitol and fight. People are like, he didn't say to like break windows. Right?
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying that like it's not like Trump was communicating with a few guys on the ground being like, if you get into the Capitol, I'll get the military there to help you. And like that's what I mean when it wasn't like official code. Trump absolutely has the messaging though. Those people were there because of his irresponsible messaging year after year after year after year. 1,000,000%. I'd never disagree with that. 100%.
I think I caught some Fox News the other night, which I don't often do, but they did a montage of things that Democrats have said leading up to and during the riots of last summer. And a lot of it was way more inflammatory than what anything Trump's ever said. Like the stuff that Maxine Waters said about taking Trump out and what people were saying about blowing up the White House. And, if you see anyone who's a member of this cabinet, get in their face and push up on them and, don't give them a job. And, if you see them at the gas station, get after them. And I want to go to
when they were locking children up in cages at the border.
Yeah, following the Obama tactics.
That's not true.
No, Obama didn't make those cages.
That's
himself.
Obama didn't fill those cages.
Yeah, that's right. It's like they had this thing.
So we were using Obama's cages. So just so we're all clear.
See,
I mean, there is a distinction to be drawn there. I mean, like we had some immigration policy, but listen, at the end of the day, you can't feel bad for me. You can't, like when you're on record saying like shithole countries, Mexicans are rapists, blah 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 blah, and then you start stuffing kids in cages. It's going to look a certain way. I mean, you really have no one to blame but yourself.
The Obama cages, yes.
The empty Obama cages that were filled with the Trump separated at the border families. I mean,
I'm glad you pointed out that they were empty. Obama not following through with anything really.
All that wasted money on cages.
All that wasted money on cages. Another liberal spending bill of just an empty cage. It's a perfect analogy for the democratic process. Yeah. Thank you.
True.
Cages built, but not filled. Trump comes in, businessman doing business, fills those cages to the brim. Kids are leaking out the top.
Gotta get shit done.
So many kids that were having to sell a few to child predators.
People will draw these comparisons between like people saying like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah. I mean, like you can play the whataboutism all day, but to try to deny that like Trump has had a clear top-down message of undermining the integrity of our system from day one, and to try to compare that with some vague things that Democrats have said about like we need to take Trump out, blah 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 blah, when Trump is literally on stage saying like, well, maybe the Second Amendment guys can do something about Hillary. Like, I think that those equivocations are hilariously not true. It's not even close to the same level. Like, we don't have like Democrats mailing fucking, what was that one guy that was mailing pipe bombs to fucking like Soros and Democratic politicians and shit?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Email them to CNN and stuff like that. Yep.
Yeah, the messaging and the undermining of the democracy. To be clear, I'm not against like all forms of protest, but like when you're the president and you are undermining our democratic system at every single step of the way, like, dude, like there are people around the world in China and Russia that are just rolling around laughing that like our head of state could do more damage to the integrity of our system than some random Democratic lawmaker on the news, calling for like, oh, we need to get Trump out. We need to take Trump out. Blah, 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 blah.
After protesters burnt down that police station, Kamala Harris said, they're not going to stop. They're going to be forewarned. Be afraid. They're not going to stop. This isn't going to stop, and they shouldn't stop. I think there's some equivocation to be drawn.
But it's not like, look, like in terms of like, we're talking about like nationwide protests. We're talking about like the BLM riots. We're talking about like protest cops. And then you have on the other end, Trump saying 3 million people illegally voted in the last election. The Dominion voting machines are counting votes in Germany, like just patently not true things that leave no room for interpretation, like saying that like the election has been stolen. Again, like you can walk through like every Democrat like soundbite that you can get over like the riots, but to say that there was like as clear a call. And the thing is too, is that like we keep hearing like how dangerous and deadly all these things are. Well, where the fuck is like where was that? Like in all of the BLM riots, and like this is the most rioting we've ever had in the entire history of the country. I think around the same number of people were killed as like the LA riots. Not a single cop got killed. I don't remember any cop killing a protester. I don't think
so either. Oh, yeah. I know there were some grievously wounded protesters.
Yeah, there was that, sure. But then in one assault on the Capitol, we get a dead cop, we get 4 or 5 dead protesters. Like,
well, conservatives are more effective at virtually everything. I agree with you there. I'm glad you made that point. But I completely agree that like it's very different. And when we initially talked about this on the last PKA, obviously you weren't here, but I was a little bit softer on the protesters because at that time we were unaware of any police officers being killed. And what we were hearing was that maybe one had accidentally tased himself and had died from that. And I have a hard time being sympathetic to that. But then I saw this video of like the protesters at the Capitol, the mob, whatever the fuck you want to call them, beating a cop to death on video with an American flag. And I was just like, all right, I'm out. Can't defend that. There's no defense for that. You murdered a cop with an American flag. I am nowhere near your side of this argument anymore. Like, this is not what I thought happened, because all the news footage I had seen was Capitol Police moving barricades aside and people walking into the Capitol. And then afterwards, this footage came out of people breaking the exterior windows out with riot shields that they brought and then crawling in and
the initial
then beating that cop to death.
Looked a lot different than the coverage from a day or two later, right? Initially, there's
Twitter
that
videos.
cute guy with the podium. There's the guy who's cosplaying as a buffalo.
It's funny.
Or something.
It's funny, frankly.
There's the guy with his feet on the desk, which is like super disrespectful. But if that's your team, it's really cool, right? If that's your team.
Can I ask you a question? Like,
yeah,
I know that you're more on the blue side, certainly than
against Trump
I am
than
a lot of the time.
Carry on.
But like Mitch McConnell's not my guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
I hate Mitch McConnell, but he's like a necessary evil in some regards to like keep the balance of the force, right? Like you need a Satan for there to even be a good, right? There has to be some evil for there to be some good. So like you want people on either side with differing opinions so that one side just doesn't go way off to the left and or right sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any do you identify with or sympathize with or like people like Nancy Pelosi, for example?
That was coming.
I love Nancy. Oh yeah.
I feel like I don't know what's so bad about her policies. I do see her as like an effective creature of Washington.
You know something else about her is she has huge tits, and you can tell they were huge when she was little. Like
Really?
not when she was younger, like 20s.
Looking for this now.
Yeah, tell us what you find.
Oh, found the OnlyFans.
Like when they wanted to impeach him, she was the one that sort of put that process together. When Trump shut down government, Trump kind of lost that argument. He looked worse in the public eye. And I think that's because Pelosi is navigating these politics better than Trump did.
Oh, yeah.
And big, huh? And share something. Give us a link.
Yeah, I'm looking for a better pick than what I
I'm
found.
asking for a link from Kyle. Never mind.
Yeah, because right now I've just got like modern Nancy Pelosi, but just wearing something that shows that she's got some jugs.
Yeah. So, but like, I don't know. I feel like she's not even pitching her own policy. She's just working on behalf of Democrats. Maybe the same way that Mitch does. Maybe there's
the thing is that like politics is so much more complicated than a lot of people give it credit for. Like people will look at a national poll saying like, oh my God, people support Medicare for all, 52%. But what they don't realize is that like that might be like 82% support in New York and like 25% support in West Virginia. So when it comes to talking to individual lawmakers at the end of the day to figure out what they support, not every single person can be on the most extreme left policy that you have. And that's why Pelosi gets shit on a lot by people on the left because they don't understand, why can't you just make every single Democrat vote for the most, like be AOC? And it's like, well, because we lose every single fucking seat if we did that. Like, you can't do that, you know?
True. Destiny.
Fictitious.
Yeah, what's
just
up?
like the
hypothetical argument. Going back to this insurrection thing.
Yeah.
Dude breaks a window. This is a hypothetical. Goes in. They obey the velvet rope lines for some reason, and they put their feet on a congressman's desk. What's the punishment? What does King Destiny lay down for someone who had that level of civil disobedience?
They have to tongue bath the desk where they put their feet on it. And then tongue bath because that's also gross.
That's a really, really, really hard question to answer. On the most emotional, the emotional take is that like they should all be tried for literal fucking like attempted coup, treason, sedition, whatever crazy shit for trying to disrupt like the democratic process of putting in a new leader. Okay. The more measured take is that like you've got a bunch of people brainwashed in some crazy fucking cult that think that Nancy Pelosi is fucking Dominion execs to make machines like spit out wrong votes or some shit. Like these people are so clearly far gone. You just like charge them with trespassing, and unless they did some actual fucked up shit, then fuck it. I think you just charge what sticks. If somebody stole some shit from the Capitol, then charge them out the ass for it. You know, if it was a federal computer, then for attempted theft of federal property or whatever, charge them with whatever you can. But the whole going extra over and over and over again, I just think it doesn't. Fuck it.
Yeah, that's pretty balanced. I've thought about it myself, and like, my emotional argument was like, Kyle said he never felt like that was his building, right? So when he said the Capitol was down, I felt the opposite. I felt like, it was harder to do that, right? The joke is, I'm no longer impressed with Nicolas Cage's ability to steal the Declaration of Independence. It turns out that you could just walk in there if you've got a big enough group, and they pull the gates aside and wave you in. And
yeah, did you see that side video where some cop just opened the door?
I have seen that. Yeah, now there were protesters behind him.
All of those videos are fake. Just as a heads up. Almost every single day one video is totally misrepresented. So there are plenty of shots, like even in that one where they're letting the protesters in, the camera pans out. That barricade is blocking nothing. There were people all around, like behind and everything. Even as that very shot pulls back, you see there's another protester like behind it. Like police were just
there's a protester filming it.
Exactly.
Who's obviously on the other side of the barricade as they watch it get pulled away. And I'm like, how many people are on that side? I don't know. Maybe. So anyway, my emotional thing was Secret Service goes in there, they point the gun at their head, they say, put your feet down. If they don't, they pull the trigger, right? That was my because you're not supposed to be in the Capitol. You're not supposed, it's a coup. It's treason. It's wild to go in there and try and prevent the rightful president from, getting the next job. All right. So, but it was like, all right, you don't actually want that, right? You don't actually want that. These people may not have, a lot of them did have coup on their head, right? They wore Civil War hoodies to the thing. They brought Confederate flags and it. But a lot of these guys, that's overkill. That's stupid. You're going too far. And I was like, you know what I think a guy should get for that? 4 weeks. 4 weeks. I kind of like that. That's a life disruption. It's a punishment. It's probably not life-changing. It's as life-changing as an automobile accident where you're not hurt. Like it's a financial penalty that you have to sort of come back from, and then you're okay. And you won't soon forget it, but...
Yeah, they're talking about decades of prison.
Yeah. Well, people are talking about that. Trump talked about that. He said he put a monument protection law in there that anyone who.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
If people got charged for that, that would be extra ironic.
Trump did. So during the BLM protests, Trump put a 10-year minimum for people who desecrate monuments or something like deface. Yeah, because they were like graffitiing courthouses and stuff like that.
Has that been used yet? Like, has that happened to anybody?
I don't think
anybody yet.
I don't know how they're charging people. Like, they're kind of saber rattling now about how hard they're going.
All like Trump's rule of the 10 years for statues. Like, has that? Because obviously a bunch of statues have been vandalized. Like, has anybody gone away for it?
Oh, I don't know. But I think Trump executive ordered it or something. Like, it's a thing. And now it's his supporters who are doing it in mass. And I don't think he saw that coming. You know, the narrative was always like, watch how peaceful we are. We pick up our own trash. We're the good protesters. And that changed. So, like, what do I actually want? I think 4 weeks. You know, for people who go in there and like do shit, go into the offices and put their, like, I don't know. If you steal a hard drive from Nancy Pelosi's computer, that's bad. You're not supposed to do that.
One of the things that makes me wonder, though, the argument that I could see pushing me to the other end of this, and I just haven't thought much about it because there's so many other things to think about right now. Mm-hmm. What if they would have gotten into like a body of lawmakers? What if they would have gotten into a room with a whole bunch of Congress people? Like, could we have theoretically seen for the first time in U.S. history, like a whole bunch of fucking lawmakers getting held hostage and killed by protesters?
The zip ties, the gallows they constructed. They were chanting, hang Mike Pence. Hang Pelosi.
And then when I think about it on that end, well, now it's like, these motherfuckers need to die. What the fuck? This is some crazy shit. Because like you said, like, why are U.S. citizens overthrowing the Capitol during our election process? Like, we're a literal laughing stock. It's probably one of the most embarrassing moments in recent history of this country. It's like unbelievable.
Right? The Capitol's not supposed to fall.
Yeah. The double ironic twist is that is that it looks like, but it looks like, I say this cautiously, unless a bombshell is released, it looks like the reason why federal troops weren't there is because the mayor, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, and the Capitol Police specifically didn't want any federal presence there because of what happened last time, because they were worried that more federal troops would incite violence. And it looks like the blame might actually fall on, I know the head of the Capitol Police already resigned, and even the mayor, for specifically rejecting help over and over and over again, because they were worried about repeating like a Lafayette Square where federal troops are out gassing protesters, and they didn't want that look, which is like triply ironic. So
I read the opposite. That guy that resigned specifically request National Guard help, and he didn't get it.
Let me be very, very clear here, because there's a lot of this gets thrown around. So one, the MPD, the Metropolitan Police Department, not the Capitol Police, they requested help from the National Guard, but the help that they requested was 320 or 370 unarmed, no riot police to help with like traffic and stuff. So that happened, but specifically non-riot police officers. And then the other request that people talk about was that during the day of, a few hours after the riots had like broken into the buildings, when they were requesting help from the National Guard, at that point, the chain of command got very fucky. And there was, I don't know if they denied the request or it was just the chain of command. There were a lot of arguments about like who was responsible for this. Like, do we have authorization to go in or not? I don't think it was a specific, we're not going to help you, fuck off kind of thing. I don't think it was specifically that going through. There's a whole bunch of people that have posted big timelines on this, and that doesn't appear to be the case.
Yeah, like I'm reading quotes right now. I am making an urgent, immediate request for National Guard assistance. I have got to get boots on the ground.
Yes.
And
they had no contingency plan for that.
And they said, I don't like the visual of the National Guard standing in a police line at the Capitol in the background. And they're like, the situation is dire. Literally, this is a guy on the phone crying for help. It's burned in my memories, right? They're going back and forth, and they're like, hey, I want to be clear. Are you denying my request for help? And he said, I'm not denying it. I'm just not the guy who can authorize it. Like,
exactly.
To your
because
point.
there was so much confusion because, and again, they specifically rejected having contingency plans in place. And I think a lot of it was they were worried that Trump would send in federal troops and it would look bad. So they're like, nah, fuck you. We're going to deal with this on our own. Fuck Trump. Fuck that. And I think that actually came back to bite them in the ass.
I look forward to it coming out because I've seen it presented in a different way. They were almost like, we want to have people here, and they're like, no, we like not having people here. We like it being fucked. And you say no, but I feel like it's not known yet. Like it's still
the reason why I would put money on this right now. I would bet you against it right now. The reason why I know that's not the case is because if those requests were being made and rejected, two things would have happened. One, it absolutely would have leaked because Trump has one of the most leaky administrations of all time. Somebody would have leaked. MPD and Capitol Police make big requests. Trump shoots them down. It would have leaked 1,000,000%. Number
it
one.
has already.
Number two, what?
It has. They said they were trying to get Trump's help and they couldn't. Why couldn't they
No,
get
but
it?
that was-
Because Trump was
that-
watching it on live TV and not taking
Yeah,
calls.
no. That was day of, though. I'm talking about preparation. In preparation, they didn't make any requests because this stuff is negotiated because they knew about this like weeks in advance.
In preparation, they said, hey, we're not asking you to be here. We're asking you to, quote, lean forward and be ready to get here if anything happens.
I don't think that happened, though. That's the thing. Because the second thing I'd say is that if requests were being made for them to be ready to go in and they weren't doing that, then the mayor would have been complaining on social media. And all over the country, we would heard, because you have to keep in mind, the FBI was already on the ground making arrests in preparation for this vote counting thing. Remember that Proud Boys guy was arrested. Like the FBI had tips and everybody was on the up and up of this. If they were begging the National Guard and the federal government to be ready, like please be ready with troops. And they were like, we're not going to do shit. You better believe Mayor Bowser would have been on Twitter. Trump fucking us over. Everybody would have tweeted it out. He's not providing help. It was radio fucking silence because they didn't want any federal presence there. That's what I think. And I think that seems to be what's played out so far, but we'll see.
Yeah. We've probably done too much politics already, but yeah, I guess I'm reading that. I'm just looking through this. There is a lot of day of asking for. I don't have no counters to your like preparation side, but I'm not sure that not responding to the day of makes everybody innocent either.
I just think leadership was
chaos, cloud of war type stuff.
Yeah, the leadership fucked up. They should have been prepared for it. They totally dropped the ball. The reason why I like to focus on that is because like a lot of people are saying that like the cops were white nationalists. The cops let them in. It was a bunch of racists. If this was BLM, it would have happened. Bullshit. I think that every cop that was there did the fucking best they could. There were like fucking when you get macro shots of this, you've got like fucking this is like Left 4 Dead tier shit. You've got like 40 cops standing against like an army of like 50,000 protesters. Like, what do you want him to do? Like people were showing like videos of like initially like, oh, look at that black cop. Like he's just walking them up the stairs. Like motherfucker, it's one cop running away from like 30 fucking people by now. What do you think he's just going to start unloading his fucking Glock into the crowd? Like,
that'll calm it down. Yeah.
They were totally unprepared for this, and it's a travesty. And I think it obfuscates the issues to have people starting to say like, oh, it was just racist cops that let him in because they were all white nationalists. That just bothers the fuck out of me.
Yeah, that seems pretty unrealistic and silly.